My name is Leanna, and I have NF2-related schwannomatosis. And a lot of you probably recognize me from Instagram and TikTok. I am the runner who decided to run the New York City Half Marathon 2 months after brain surgery. Um, But my NF journey, it started when I was 16 years old. I was training to be a ballerina and I was in pain. My left leg, specifically in the hip, it really hurt to move my leg. And long story short, an MRI showed that there was a tumor in my lower spine. And it took 2 surgeries to remove, and it actually left me in a wheelchair due to all of the nerve damage that my leg experienced. I wasn't able to stand for more than a couple seconds without my leg collapsing out from underneath me. And I was told I would probably never dance again. And I said, "Do you want to bet?" And so I slowly regained how to walk, and through college, I danced again. I switched types of dance because I realized ballet was not gonna be able to be a thing for me anymore. And it was an amazing experience, but through that, it was discovered that I had the twin acoustic neuromas, or the vestibular schwannomas. They were very tiny at the time, and a specialist that I saw, he said, "Come back to me in years when they're bigger, because there's nothing we can do about them right now. We can't remove them." And for me, that was really, really tough, because at the time, I thought the answer to curing NF was removing all the tumors in my body. So I wanted these tumors out of my head. I didn't care that I was going to be deaf from the surgery. I wanted them gone. And no one was willing to do that. They were too tiny. No surgeon wanted to do that to me. And when I was seeing finally a specialist, a clinical trial was presented to me, and I was like, you know what? If I can't have surgery, I'm going to go on a clinical trial. So I went on the lapatinib trial. It was my very first trial, and I actually saw some success with it. It was a very easy trial to deal with. As Dr. Yohe described, it's a lot of commitment. The side effects can be tough, but I found them to be pretty mild, and I was able to keep continuing to live my life however I wanted to. And I was happy to see some results. And when the year was up, I was ready to sign up for the next one. I wanted to keep doing all of these trials because, yes, my tumors were small enough, so I really didn't have anything to lose if they didn't work, but I still wanted them gone. And I also knew in the back of my head that my participation meant something on a greater scale to someone else, because I realized someone who did have something to lose and had their hopes and wishes banking on this trial working for them may have made them even more hesitant to join, because they didn't want to risk it not working and face that disappointment. So I was willing to participate and be that sort of test subject, so to speak, to give the answer and hope that, hey, this does work, or hey, at least we know what to do next if it doesn't. And so I started my second trial. It was the everolimus trial. It did not go well for me. I was actually only able to stay on it for 6 months. The side effects became too much, and my quality of life was just not in my favor. And so I came off of it, because that is an option. And I took some time to recover for myself and just let that be. And honestly, I think it was too soon for me to start a second trial. I started that trial within 6 months of being off of the lapatinib. It was one right after the other. So I don't think my body was ready. And I still had that mindset, though, get these tumors out of my body. And so a potential third trial came up within the third year then, in that time. And I said, sign me up. And I know a lot of you guys understand that not all of our doctors are local, and so we have to travel to see all these appointments. And I was one of those people that had to travel in, so I started getting all the MRIs done and the initial testing done. and went back home. And then a couple weeks later, I had to travel back out to do the blood work stages and to get the final answer of if I was approved as a candidate for this trial. Well, it turned out they had the answer with my MRI scan that I was not approved. And I got extremely upset. Not the fact that I wasn't approved, but because they didn't tell me until I traveled again all the way in. I was like, you guys could have called me. That could have been a phone call. And in that moment, I realized I was turning myself into a guinea pig, and I let this doctor turn me into a guinea pig. And so I took that chance to switch doctors and get the treatment that I needed for myself. And it took 10 years to rebuild the strength to feel brave enough to do another trial, because now it was an end-all be-all for me. I needed to be on a trial. It wasn't, it's okay if it doesn't work out. And in January 2022, I was presented with an opportunity for a drug trial, the neratinib trial. And it wasn't fully approved yet. They were still doing all the boilerplate stuff, talking to lawyers and all of that. But I got word of it, and I said, yes, I want to join. And in March 2022, I was going to be running my first New York City Half Marathon. And I ran it, and at mile 4, up ahead of me, I saw another runner wearing a blue shirt with a giant NF on the back of it. And I cried. I knew CTF existed. I did not get involved in any way with my community, and I knew with this trial and I knew with the running, now that I had confirmation that this team existed here for me, I needed to be part of this, and I needed to get more involved, and I needed to share with the world that being on a trial was not as scary as you may think. And I also decided I wanted to run the New York City Marathon. And so I waited till the lottery opened up. I did not get in. The lottery was not the way to go. The percentage to get in is very tough if you don't know that. And I contemplated whether or not I should join CTF with their NF endurance team for it. And during that time that I was contemplating it, I found out the drug trial was approved and that I was going to start the process to apply for it to see if I qualified. And for me, I was like, you know what? Running a marathon while on a drug trial is probably not the best idea. So I held off. I continued running. And lo and behold, my first week on the chemo trial was the weekend of the New York City Marathon that year. And that was also when I posted my first video on TikTok and Instagram documenting day 1 of my chemo trial, talking about all the side effects, all about NF, educating the internet, because I knew there was more than just the NF community out there that was going to see these videos, and they needed to learn. And I didn't get as immediate traction, but slowly but surely I started getting messages from people with NF or parents of those with NF, and I knew what I was doing meant something, and I knew I needed to continue it. And so I ran in 2023 with CTF for the New York City Half Marathon, and I was still on the trial, and I continued training on the trial because I also had guaranteed entry into the New York City Full Marathon for 2023. And I knew that the trial, being only a year, I was going to be able to finish, and it was going to be this amazing landmark in my life to say, I just finished my trial, now let's go run the New York City Full Marathon. Joke's on me, I ran the full marathon while on the trial. As it turns out, about 9 months in, we realized the trial wasn't actually working for me, and my right vestibular schwannoma was still growing. the growth rate was slowing down on it, but it wasn't actually shrinking. And the harsh reality came forward of, you're probably going to have surgery or try Avastin, up to you. And my doctor let me sit with it and think about it. And I ultimately decided that surgery was going to be the best answer based on pros and cons of being on Avastin and then going into surgery. And I also didn't want to find out if Avastin wasn't going to work. And so I ran the full marathon. It was an amazing experience. And then in January, 3 months ago, I had my right vestibular schwannoma removed. I am now completely deaf in my right ear. I have an ABI implant. It sounds like lightsabers are going off all the time when people are talking. So no, I do not understand anything through it yet, but I'm hoping one day that I will. I at least get some syllable recognition, and I'm able to hear the rhythms through it, which is really great and a comfort to me because I am still running, and something that I knew I was going to do after this surgery was run the New York City Half Marathon again. And so I ran it, and I had a blast. I didn't race it. I just made sure I had a good time because I wanted to prove to myself that I can continue living my life despite all of this that was going on, despite the NF, despite being on trials. And it was such an amazing experience because I ran it with CTF, and it was just such an amazing family to be with. Everyone's there for the same reasons, and the support that you feel as you are running through is just incredible. And I'm excited to say that I will be running Chicago this fall and New York again. But I knew my story needed to be shared, and I'm going to continue sharing it and making sure that people know that you can keep living your life no matter what's going on. Being on trials, going through surgery, it's our life. We have to own it.